Once upon a time, on what was it? My freshman year in college. That was November 1st, 2001. Picture it. Sicily, 1942. Seriously. So I attended Spelman College. And it's November 1st. That was a Thursday. November 1st, 2001. I am a biology pre-med major in study hall, getting ready to prepare for my first major exam in biology. I was biology pre-med. I wanted to go to med school and be a pediatrician neonatologist because I love babies. I do. I love babies. And I was studying with some other classmates. Mind you, this is November 1st, so we about to have our first major exam. Study hall ended around 7-ish. And I know that I was trying to get back to my dorm room by 8 o'clock because I was a huge fan of WWE. That was back in the day when The Rock was in it. And I watched that show religiously every Thursday. I think it came on at 8 o'clock. I was like, oh, gotta get back. WWE back. Come on. So, we're leaving and going to the dorm, and I get to the dorm room. Okay. This is my first college roommate. I stayed on campus for 2 years. So, my freshman year and my sophomore year. My freshman year, I got lucky. I got blessed, actually, because I ended up getting a spot on campus like a week or two before school started. Even the week of like freshman week, I was still like I actually stayed in another dorm room with some other girls that I knew, and that way I could, I couldn't travel back and forth commute because I didn't have a car, I didn't have a way to get to and from school every day like that, and it just wasn't safe either by myself through the neighborhood that my mom lived in. It was not safe at all. So after petitioning the resident director, she finally had found me a spot like a week before classes started. So I'm moving in last minute. My roommate had been in that room, occupying it by herself. And it's so funny because my mom knew what was going on with her. She literally told me, she said, your roommate is pregnant. Just like that. I was like, how do you know? She was like, the girl pregnant. She just hiding it. She pregnant. Y'all know this is that old saying that grandparents used to say, I can smell that baby all the way from over here. I can smell that baby in you. Like, you can smell my baby, great. But that's just kind of like a colloquialism for saying, they have a way of knowing and telling. Parents and grandparents just have a way of knowing. And so my mother called it. She knew it. She said, I took one look at your roommate, and I said to myself, your roommate is pregnant. Her roommate pregnant. She pregnant. And when she told me that, I was like, oh. Okay, because mind you, I didn't move into the campus until a week before classes started. So I met my roommate. Oh my God, my house is talking to me. I need to hit the lottery, get a job or something. I can move out and buy my own home. But so being that I met her the day I moved in, there was no opportunity to like talk to her beforehand or anything like that. So I met her the day I moved in, and she was she wore baggy clothes and stuff like that, and she wasn't noticeably big, But there's a difference, with someone that's small, a difference between like a little pudge, a little belly, and a pregnant belly. Big difference. So the fact that, she wasn't fat or anything. She was small, probably about 120 pounds at best, with her pregnancy. And she just had a little firm belly. And so what tripped me out was that when I got back to the room, she had been in the dorm room that whole day. And she was still wearing her pajamas or whatnot. And okay, so basically she had been in the room the whole day. And I had, I think, 3 or 4 classes. This was on Thursday, so I think my class schedule was like 2 or 3 classes for that day. And I was done around 2 or 3 o'clock. So I had went to the dorm room before I had study hall, because she had said she wasn't feeling well. And she was biology pre-med as well. So we had the same majors and we had the same classes. Maybe I think she was chemistry. But we both had a couple classes together. And this is still first semester of freshman year here. This is November 1st of 2001. School started August 2001. So school only been in session for 3 months. And that day she wasn't feeling well. She was in the room and she was just kind of like, can you get me something to eat, whatever. So I back then they had Chick-fil-A on campus in the dining hall. So you had the regular dining hall where the cafeteria was, and then underneath it in the little lobby area on the bottom level, you had like other little restaurants and stuff like that. And Chick-fil-A was one of them. So I don't know why they took away Chick-fil-A from dining hall at Spelman. That was weird. Maybe they brought it back. I don't know. But they had Chick-fil-A there. And so when you wanted to buy food from the atrium, the lower level, these are regular restaurants. I think they had like a Moe's or something, tacos, Chick-fil-A, a couple other like Chinese food, I think, and something else. But you having to spend regular money for that, or you can use money you have in your school account, but you had to buy that. The meal plan, if you stayed on campus, covered the school cafeteria, but not the restaurants on the bottom level. And so I went over there, got her some Chick-fil-A, brought it back. And then, of course, I had study hall that evening. Got done with that around 7:30-ish. Walked across to the campus. Spelman is not that big. From the science building to the dorm, the hall that I stayed in was Manley Hall. And so that was kind of like the first dorm room building that you saw when you go into the campus, Manley Hall. And the science building was across campus, but it's not that big. It's not like you walking, 15, 20 minutes across the campus. So got back to the room around 7:30-ish, felt pretty good, studied, ready to take my test, and then get in the room. She's not in the room. And so, if you know about college living, dorm room, back then, well, the dorm rooms in that particular building wasn't set up to where every, like an apartment suite style. So they had some schools have it to where the dorms are kind of like an apartment suite, basically. And you have 5 individual rooms with like a bed and desk and dresser and whatever. And then there's like a communal kitchen, living room, dining room, and bathroom. And the bathroom still has this, locker room type effect. You have the toilet stalls. On that floor I was on was the second floor. I think it was like 6 toilet stalls, and then like 6 or 7 shower stalls in one huge bathroom. And so, my understanding, she didn't go anywhere. She only had been in the bathroom. So, get in the room, grab my stuff. I promise you all, it was probably, a minute or two before I opened the door. And all of a sudden, there's this commotion going on. Everybody's standing in the hallway. And I'm headed to the bathroom to grab a shower because I did not want to miss my show. And as soon as I opened my door, my dorm mates across the hall, they looked at me and they said, "Girl, where's your roommate?" And I said, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Where's your roommate?" I said, "She didn't go anywhere, so I assumed she may have just went to the bathroom." And they said, "Girl, she just had a baby." I was sitting here like, okay, first of all, my mama called it. Secondly, I was like, are you kidding? I was like, she's been in the room all day. She just gave birth? Wait, what? Just gave birth? Just like that. And I was standing there like, this is unbelievable. So I didn't even make it like out of my dorm room fully. Okay, and I literally see everybody standing in the hallway. And so of course, if you live in dorms, you know you got to keep your key on you at all times. You have 2 keys that you keep on you. 3. A key for the lock on your closet. Or if nowadays they have it set up with that apartment suite style where it's 1 person per room. But it might be 5 rooms in the suite. But you still have a key to your door. And then you have a key to the building. So you keep them keys on you at all times. Even when you take a shower. You lock your room up. Whether if your roommate in there, I always kept my key with me. Because I never expected my roommate to just be in the room while I did anything. So you keep your key on you because your roommate could leave the dorm room and you don't know, and that's it, and you need to get back in the room. I said, man, this is unbelievable. Stood outside in the hallway, and it's, like I said, lined up with students. So I go back in the room. My heart is racing. Because now I'm just nervous at the thought of what is about to happen. Now, this girl has had a baby in the bathroom. Now, part of the rules is for a matter of liability as well. You cannot live on campus in your 3rd trimester. They understand Spelman is all female HBCU. You might get pregnant. You can't stay on campus because of liability if you are in your 3rd trimester. So when she started the year in August, she may have been in her 2nd trimester. Excuse me, but she should have, if she would have told people what was going on, because she didn't tell anybody. She didn't tell her parents, tell nobody. But if she would have notified her parents or her grandmother, they would have set her up, and she had friends there. She had came to Spelman during that summer before freshman year started for a pre-freshman summer program or something like that. So she had already met people and met other friends at school on campus. A couple of them were sophomores and juniors that had already had their, own apartments. And they even said that they would have allowed her to stay with them until she had the kid. And then, her family would have had to go from there to figure out what to do, and she was not from Spelman College is in Atlanta, Georgia. So she's not from Georgia. She was out of state from another state. I'm not gonna say her name. I'm not gonna say where she was from either. But she was out of state. So they would have had to make plans to come get the baby, whatever, put her up in a hotel, well, not a hotel, an apartment, and figure out what to do from there. But that decision should have been made the moment she went into her third trimester. The fact that she did not tell anybody she was pregnant, and then she did not notify the school or follow the rules regarding, being in your third trimester, trying to live on campus, and now you have this whole liability issue with the school. And so when I went back into the room, let me go back to that. When I went back to the room, put my stuff down, threw on some sweats, because I literally, was getting ready to get in the shower. So I just threw on a shirt and some sweatpants, had put my little shower caddy down, went back out to the bathroom. The stall that she gave birth in was a whole scene upon itself. Okay? Just like the video of the girl we just watched, where she left the bathroom in an ER hospital where you already have doctors and nurses ready and willing to help. Left the scene like it was a crime scene almost. It was just crazy. So it wasn't that bad with my roommate, but it was definitely, blood prints, stuff like that. I don't want to get too graphic and have my video blocked, but you can tell there somebody was in here doing a whole lot of things, and it's signs of it. So when I got into the bathroom, there's already 2, I think, paramedics in there and a couple police officers. And at Spelman, they have their own, most colleges have their own police unit or police department, or they partner with whatever county they're in, their police department. But Spelman have their own police officers there. So you had Spelman police, and then you had 1 or 2 Atlanta Police Department officers in there. Plus you had a paramedic. And then on the way to the bathroom, when I put my shower caddy down, threw clothes on, went back out, on my way to the bathroom, I saw a paramedic carrying the baby. And it was in that aluminum foil thing to kind of insulate the body heat. That's what those are for. So it had the baby in that, I call it the foil insulator, but it looks like a big aluminum foil blanket. And I promise you all, this paramedic ran down the stairs, skipping stairs. I've never seen that in my life. Holding a newborn and trying his best to get that baby to the ambulance. Baby needed oxygen and stuff like that. Keep baby from going into distress. And we on the 2nd floor. So he had two stairways to get down. And that man was record time out in that at that ambulance by 10 seconds. I mean, it was just that quick. He skipped stairs running to get that baby out. So after seeing that, I was like, my God. I went in the bathroom. She had to move from the toilet stall to the shower stall. And she's sitting on a little bench, made in the shower wall. You have a little bench, you sit there, or whatever. And I said, what happened? Now, I didn't ask this because I didn't know that she just gave birth, because that's obvious. I asked her that because I wanted to see what her state of mind was. Because this is somebody that's not 18 years old on campus that is literally about to be thrown off campus because she broke the rules with being on campus in her 3rd trimester, didn't tell anybody she was pregnant, and then she goes in the bathroom, gives birth, and denied any help. Denied help. So before people started telling me what happened, this is why I asked her, because I wanted to see what her state of mind was and what she was thinking. Like, what did you think was going to happen with this? And so she was like, I didn't know. I said, you didn't know what? You didn't know you were about to give birth? Because I've seen other schoolmates come, and like a couple of times where girls were raising money to join a sorority or whatever, and they asked her, are you pregnant? How far along are you? Because it got to a point, I didn't force any of that out of her. My mother had already told me, she called it, and I didn't force anything like that out of her, because if she's not telling anybody and she's willing to lie to people's faces about it, what am I going to do other than make our living situation hard? That I can't force someone to come out and say that. So I didn't want to put any unnecessary pressure on her, understanding that she's 18. And my mother even told me, like, my mother, hid her first pregnancy for a while, and she was like, I've been through that. And psychologically, it's an adjustment. Your life is about to be altered greatly when you become a mom or dad, become a parent. So when you're not prepared for that, and you're talking about someone who has mentally shut themselves out of the concept of being a parent, because what they want, of course, going to college and stuff, and they want to be able to get a job and all this stuff, having a baby changes the plans, unless you got a strong support system. Maybe you got some money, you got people that can help you, and you can still do what you need to do. You're thinking about all of that, and sometimes people just think, I don't want to face the reality of this happening to me, because I don't want to face this reality. I'm about to be a parent and I'm pregnant, and just scared to say something. Oh man, it was so crazy. So when I asked her that, and she kept saying, I didn't know, I said, you didn't know what? You didn't know that you were pregnant, or you didn't know you were giving birth? Because I'm not gonna stand here and hear you say you didn't know you were pregnant. I'm not gonna let you tell me that. So you're telling me you didn't know you were about to give birth because you knew you were pregnant. So when all of that happened, I was sitting there and I said, this is why you were in the room all day. She was in labor. She had been in labor. She had said, her stomach was hurting, this, that, and the third, wasn't feeling well, wasn't really eating, anything like that. Actually, for like that week, she was very sluggish and, really started missing classes and all kinds of things because she wasn't feeling well. And that day, she really stayed in bed all day. She, while I was in study hall, I guess her water had broke while she was in bed because, it was stain and stuff on her bed sheets and stuff like that. So, man, she went into battle because she was in labor. And her water had broken, and she went in there and she gave birth. And the crazy thing is, after I talked to her, I asked her what happened. She's sitting there shaking, and I knew she was scared. The human response of this is you're thinking about what's happening with this. To me, what's happening with this baby? So I was like, is the baby alive or whatever? Yeah, the baby's, And that's when the paramedic came, and they had already took the baby out. She just stained. So she got bodily fluids and stuff, blood on her. She just head to toe, just a wreck. And I'm sitting here like, what did you think was going to happen because what ended up happening is, let me go back. When I asked her what happened, she was like, I didn't know. And I told her, obviously you knew you were pregnant, you just didn't know you was giving birth or something. And then I asked her, I said, what were you trying to do? And so she was like, I was just going to come to the room and, call 911. And I'm like, what? You going to bring a baby back, a newborn baby, back to our dorm room and call 911 when you were in the bathroom? And people heard her making noises and sound like she was struggling and grunting. And the reason why 911 was called was because someone, another dorm mate, just had enough of it and was like, okay, it's something serious going on. And a couple of them said that they were in there when they heard the baby come out and whimpered and cried. So by that point, the paramedics is already on the way, because they didn't really waste too much time with calling 911. As soon as they just heard that and they saw the bodily fluids, stuff like that, they called 911. So by the time she got through giving birth, came out of the bathroom stall, she was greeted with the paramedics and the police. So she didn't even make it out the bathroom after she had given birth. So it was kind of like they took the baby from her. They told me that they had to cut the cord. So the cord hadn't even been cut. So the baby was still connected to her. And then when they came in the bathroom and saw her come out the bathroom stall, like I said, she was greeted head on with paramedics, police officers. Mind you, we had Spelman police officers and then APD. And they grabbed the baby. They saw that the cord was not cut. So they clamped the cord and cut it just to kind of take the baby out. And they said that the baby was wrapped in her bathrobe. And the belt of the bathrobe was around the baby's neck. I'm trying to time myself with this. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. This is the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. So, the belt of the bathrobe was around the baby's neck. And I never forget, she had a blue bathrobe. And she wore that religiously. Because, she was pregnant. So, yeah. And that's what they encountered. So, naturally, when you come in and you're, not only did you give birth to a baby in the bathroom in a dorm room on campus, when you should not have even been living in the dorm room in your third trimester, you were asked, are you okay? Several times. And you kept telling people you were okay. You're just using the bathroom. And it wasn't until, they started seeing body fluids and just her squatting, pushing, whatever she was doing, that they just said, all right, this is enough. Call the police. Instead of you asking for the help, this is how the police officers see it. You're not asking for help. You're delivering a child on your own. You're denying that this is happening. And then you're trying to come out of the bathroom with the baby wrapped in a bathrobe with, it could have just been her swallowing the baby up real quick. And the belt of the bathrobe just so happened to be, in the position around the baby's neck area, but not necessarily her intending to wrap the belt of the bathrobe around the baby's neck. It could just been her in a hurry, just rolling the baby up in it. But either way, the baby was covered up in a bathrobe. Not getting any air. And then the way the belt was positioned around the baby ended up being ironically around the baby's neck. I don't know, because when I saw the baby being carried out, the baby was in that aluminum foil blanket thing. So they had obviously taken the baby, unwrapped the baby from the bathrobe, cut the cord, and clamped it on the baby, put the baby in that insulating blanket, the foil insulator, and then carried the baby out. Because they were like, you had the baby completely wrapped and covered, where it's hard to, like, how can you expect a newborn to breathe? And then, of course, you denying help and denying the reality of the situation. You giving birth. You know, you wanted people to kind of look away with that, and that's just not how that goes. So, man, when I sat there and I was talking to her, and you know, I told her, I said, I don't know what you were trying to do, but this is not how you handle this, you know. I said, so I don't know what you were trying to do. I don't know if you were gonna, like, you're trying to bring a newborn baby that was still connected to you with the cord, wrapped in a blanket, back to the dorm room, and do what? You know? And she just was like sitting there shaking, like, days out. I don't know. And so that's when the officers came over, and they were like, you know, okay, we have to, you know, we gotta take you, you know, whatever. So she went to the hospital detained. They charged her with one of them was definitely attempted murder. Another was endangerment, and a couple other charges. But the attempted murder was serious in and of itself. So they had charged her right then and there. That's why I don't understand why this girl in this video, this 19-year-old, who had a baby in the ER hospital bathroom, was not charged in the hospital and then detained from that point, and taken, once she was discharged from the hospital, was taken straight to jail. Because that's exactly what they did with my roommate when that happened with her. And she was on campus in a dorm room. You know, there was no cameras around recording. This girl, this 19-year-old, I mean, they see her on camera going in and out the bathroom, you know. And with her being the last person in and out of there, especially when they had to keep knocking on the door, talking about, what are you doing? You know, how much more evidence do you need to at least charge her with something to, you know, to detain her and to keep her from going home? But they let her get discharged and go home, and then arrested her from her home. My roommate got arrested on the spot in the bathroom on campus. You know, especially with the fact that she was greeted by the cops and couldn't make it out the bathroom with this baby. So they took her to the hospital, and, you know, she was handcuffed to the bed. And so this was on a Thursday evening. So the next day, no, let's go back to that night. The night got crazy as expected. It did. It got insane. By the time I got through and I asked her, you know, before they took her, I said, you have anybody you want me to call for you, or, you know, reach out to and contact? She was like, yeah, you know, can you call my mom? And, you know, her grandmother, who had also, I think, raised her, definitely, you know, took care of her. I was raised by my grandmother. Doesn't mean that my mom didn't want to be a mother. It's just my grandmother raised me. That's kind of how I went. But, you know, and then I asked her, I said, well, I think she gave me the information to unlock her phone, and it had all her contacts in there. So when the cops took her, the first thing I did was I called her mom and her stepdad. And then, of course, I had called her grandmother. And I think her uncle had called me. And then the presumed father of the child, of the baby. The mother would, man, it was so heartbreaking to hear that. She was just like, oh my God, she had a baby. And mind you, they're out of state. So There was not enough time for them to really catch a flight or anything. They had to get on the road. And that's exactly what they did. They immediately, you talking about 10 something at night. Because when she got detained and taken out, then the police department came in. They took photos. They had to photograph everything. You can see like, the little trail, blood, whatever, from the bathroom to the shower. And then when they took her out the bathroom to, the ambulance, then there was a trail on the way there. So they had to take pictures of all of that. And then, of course, the resident director was there trying to figure out what was going on. And, like, she shouldn't have been on campus and all these things. It was just so much commotion, right? And so I went back to the dorm room, and I went back in there, and then the next thing I know, my whole floor of dorm mates, it was like a campfire meeting outside my dorm room. Everybody in the building was on that floor, and it was like 20 girls, 20 of us in my dorm room. And we were all just they all just sharing, everybody who went in the bathroom, the girls that called 911, everybody is just kind of sharing their story and what they saw and heard and what they did. And that's when things started coming together. And, a couple of girls said they saw the baby come out. They heard the baby cry and everything. So the baby took a breath, they cried and everything. And it was just kind of like, they kept asking her, because they heard her making noises and moaning and grunting and stuff. And she kept denying help and kept saying there's nothing wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then they, the girls that saw the baby come out, they was like, oh no, and they were like, she could have just asked for help even in that moment. Even if you denied being pregnant and kind of in this alternate, mindset, in that moment of you giving birth, you could still spare yourself from charges by saying, I need help. I call 911 and go from there. Because what's worse, your parents getting mad or are you facing murder charges? What's worse? I think the parents getting mad part is something they'll get over real quick. They can be mad till Jesus gets back, but you do not want to be facing attempted murder or murder charges because you delivered a child that may have had signs of life, and then you wrap the baby up in the robe or put baby in the trash can. Are you kidding? Like, let's go with just risk it on the parents getting upset. It's the lesser of the two things. And honestly, most parents will probably be more upset at you not saying something for 40 weeks, which is the length of a human pregnancy. 40 weeks, and you didn't say anything. I think more parents would be more upset and disturbed by that. No matter how old you are, whether you legal or even still underage or whatever. But this is not how a parent should find out that you just gave birth to a baby either. So let's pick the lesser of the two. I'd rather parents be upset and then you guys work something out than for you to be facing attempted murder charges and, jeopardizing the life of a newborn because you're scared to tell your parents you had a kid. It's insane. It's insane. Like, she wouldn't have been neither one of these girls, whether it was my freshman roommate or this young lady in this video. You trust me. How many people on earth? You know how many other 18, 19-year-olds have had kids? You're not the only ones having babies at 18 or 19 years old. Some girls having babies younger than that. But it does not give credence to you to put a baby in a trash can or, luckily my roommate did not do that, but she wrapped the baby in a bathrobe And whether the belt was meant to go around the baby's neck or not is irrelevant. It was the fact that you denied help, and then you tried to cover it up, and then tried to sneak out the bathroom with a newborn baby wrapped in a robe, still attached to you. I was like, this is unbelievable. So when the girls told me that, and many of them, I mean, like I said, the whole dorm room, the dorm campus, it was Manley Hall, the whole dorm was on my floor, lined up in the hallways, and everybody's just listening and asking questions and talking, and my room was packed, and it was just like a campfire. I promise you, like a convention. And I mean, then the phone started ringing. Back then, you had dorm phones, a landline. Phones ringing off the hook, her phone, my phone, from people calling about that at other campuses, other school, people who attended other schools. For instance, Spelman and Morehouse are pretty much right next to each other, alone, and then Clark Atlanta University. I had calls coming in from students that attended Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, UGA. I don't know how did that spread that fast. This is a matter of what, 15 minutes? The phones were ringing and they were nonstop. It got to a point where they had, like, my dormants just had to unplug the phones because they were like, we can't even have a conversation. These phones are ringing. That spread like a dumpster fire. And it was insane how fast that got around. That this girl had a baby in the bathroom. Oh my God. So phones are ringing off the hook. Yes, we had cell phones back then. So she had a phone, and I called all her people on her phone because they can recognize her number, of course. And, started with the mom. And, it was just, that was, man, I don't even remember if I got any sleep that night. But when I say everybody started coming from across the campus, people were calling from other schools. It was like, I heard somebody had a baby over there. Like, well, who are you? Who are you? What? How did you get this number? They had my phone number, not just hers. No, we both had dorm room phones, and then we both had cell phones. No. They were calling both phones. I had no idea how half these people got my dorm room number. Man, this went on for a couple hours until it just got to a point where, okay, we need to unplug these phones. Because, if I'm going to call anybody, it's going to be from her phone and it's going to be her people. So I called her mom and people were just like, we all here. If you want us to help you do anything, whatever. I mean, next thing you know, the whole dorm was filled with, students across the campuses, that came over. And I mean, it was insane. But the sisterhood of it all, and the fact that I had people there, I became a little infamous from that. It was like, you're the roommate of the girl that had the baby in the bathroom. Like, oh yeah. Like, all right, fine. Now, I have a name, but okay. But that's what happened. I mean, it was just the reality of the situation. And so when I called her mom was just so upset. She got so upset that her stepdad took the phone and was like, she's just having a meltdown. She was like, he said, why didn't she say that she was having a baby? Like, why she didn't tell anybody? And I'm like, I don't know. But the only person that really knew and called it was my mother. And my mother pretty much was kind of warning me on the side, like, you might want to brace yourself because it's about to get real up in here, And of course, I called my mom and She was like, I told you so. And then I called my godmother, who's my other mother. And I was like, you got to get me off this campus. So the next day, that Friday, she picked me up, kept me for the whole weekend. But yeah, so going back to that night after I called her mom and then her stepdad, and then I called her grandmother, and her grandmother was just devastated. She was like, I can't believe that she would not say something. I would help her raise that baby. You know, her grandmother, you know, worked hard and financially stable. You know, she said, I can afford to take care of the baby and all that. You know, she was helping her with her education. So I don't know what her grandmother did for a living, but that lady has some money. So it's, like I said, one of these situations where you have a support system and you have, you know, someone with the income and the finances to help you, you know, there's really no excuse. You can still go to college. You can still, she said she would have gotten her, you know, an apartment. She would have, you know, all the people that she had, my roommate had met during the summer was over there, and they all were like, you know, upperclassmen. And they even said, you know, she could have stayed with us until her family worked something out with her getting an apartment, you know, but this all could have been avoided. And you know, that night, man, the friends that she had, I met people that night, a lot of people on campus. Everybody kind of knew my face and knew who I was from that point moving forward. And it was just like, whatever you need us to do to help, we can. So, of course, when I talked with her grandmother, she said, you know, I would have helped her with the baby, all these things. And it was just like, man. And then from there, the girls that she had befriended during the summertime, we went to the hospital. And so before I went to the hospital, the Spelman College police officers were like, look, what you need to do is, if you're asked about this, you need to defer anybody, any media, anything to the media relations department and to the resident director or the Spelman police, and go from there. Don't talk to the press. Don't talk to the media, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, how do you control the media of word of mouth? Like, you trying to control the media word of mouth? Well, you kidding me? Like, think about this. I have calls coming in from kids who are attending Georgia Tech, Georgia State, UGA, Clark, Morris Brown was even open then. This is before Morris Brown was shut down. Morehouse, all over. I mean, it calling from all over Metro Atlanta area. I think a couple of people called from Georgia Southern. I mean, it was just, that's how fast it spread. You know, so I say, you really can't control word of mouth. I mean, you talking about college kids gossiping. Are you kidding? This has to be the news of the century. Like, people think that, you know, Spelman women are stuck up. No, we ain't. Some of us struggling and, you know, having hard times. Like, I'm a witness, you know, and had student loans and still have student loans. I mean, everybody that attends Spelman is not balling like that. I don't even know where people got that from. There's nothing to be jealous or upset over. Period. The end. It's another school. It's a good school. You know, it is infamous for having wealthy, you know, students and parents who have money. I personally think they're too damn expensive. A lot of HBCUs are just too costly. Especially when you're talking about not having indoor AC at that time. Everybody had a fan in the window. If you spend all this money, you can't give us an AC unit, you better kick rocks. So, the tuition was high then, and that was back in 2001. You can imagine what it is now. So, yeah, all those dorm rooms should be state of the art with the tuition they charge. But, yeah, it was insane. Like, we left, 2 or 3 of her friends, upper class, left. They were like, we're going to go to the hospital. You know, they came to my room like, hey, we're going to go to the hospital. Do you want to come with us? Whatever, you can come. And that's when I ran into the Spelman police and RD that basically was like, when it comes to, I guess, the media and the press, you just refer them to us or whatever. And I told them, like, our phone's been ringing off the hook for hours without, a break. And that's when they were like, well, no, you can't control word of mouth. You can't do that. But it was, man, craziness. So once we got to the hospital, they didn't allow us to go see her. So sad to say, I never saw her again after that. I couldn't go in the hospital to see her. That was my last time when she got carried out the bathroom. That was it. I never saw her again. And I always wondered how she was doing and how the baby's doing. But I never saw her again. So they didn't let us see her. She was detained, of course. Which is why I don't understand why they didn't detain this girl at the hospital when they notified the police, and had the baby in the trash can. Like, that's proof. With my roommate, at least they were able to catch her on the way out the bathroom. And after everybody was telling me their stories of how they saw the baby come out and all this other stuff, how they kept asking if she was okay. The girls that called 911 was in there kind of giving me their story. Everybody, telling me what happened. They was like, she had people asking, is she okay? Does she need help? What's going on? This, that, and the third. And it got to a point where we just had to call 911, which is the right thing to do. And it's crazy. I guess she thought she was just going to come in a room with a newborn baby wrapped up in a bathrobe. Like, I would not have allowed that to happen. First of all, there is no way you're going to bring a brand new newborn baby back into this dorm room. You have bodily fluids all over the place. This baby's wrapped up in a bathrobe and still connected to you. How are you going to cut the cord without killing yourself or the baby? What? No. Because at that point, let's say that hypothetically, she got it out the bathroom and made it to the room and locked herself in the room. Then what? What would she have done in that room with this baby? Your state of mind is just all over the place. And then I'm in the shower, I go back and I'm like, what the? Newborn baby? What? I would not have allowed her to do anything. So either way, the 911 was going to be called. And that would have been the end of that. She wouldn't have been able to get away with that. No, ma'am. Nope. I don't know what you're thinking. But she would not have gotten away with it. So either way, she was going to have to face a cop or a paramedic at some point. But to say that you were trying to come back to the room to call 911 is kind of illogical and futile when you were offered the help and someone had to ultimately call 911 for you while you were saying not to do that. Like, you can't. Come on. You can't do that. And I would not allow you to just be in the room with this baby like this. I would have called 911 myself. The end. It still would have came down to the same conclusion. Now, I would have been able to see that you weren't trying to attempt murder on anything if that were the case. But then what if she did do something like that? Like, you never know people's state of mind. What if she did do something heinous in the room with the baby? Like, no. And then I have to come back in there and be a part of that? No, ma'am. No. The devil is a lie. You will not. You're talking about a newborn baby here. Are you kidding me? So, and it was a boy. It was a boy. So this is part one. So I gotta go pick my son up. So, part two coming back. Because this story gets way deeper.